better than everyone in NA.
Yeah, and a lot of times when we see teams who will have really good rotations like that, then one of two things happens. Either one, they're so focused on their rotations and they don't want to lose their lead that they end up potentially not being willing to fight. And we know that No Tomorrow are still willing to fight. But then the other side of that too is that if their rotations get interrupted somehow, if they get a staggered death, like we saw from No Tomorrow when Equinox died around the shrine, then all of a sudden it's like, how do we recover from this and the staggered deaths continue? They didn't allow for that. Once they lost the 2 kills and then Equinox went in as a staggered death, immediately things shifted and it was like, we're calm, we're going to let them have this Punisher, we'll deal with that, we have all of our forts up, this is not a big deal, don't panic.
And I feel like the biggest thing to highlight when looking at No Tomorrow, yes, the rotations were pretty, but this ability to adapt in the middle of the series, in my opinion, is probably one of the hardest things to do because you have to set aside all emotion and you're on a timer to figure out the problem. You only get, it's not a trial and error of infinite tries either. You only get about 2 to 3 at most in a game. No Tomorrow luckily got 3 of them. The third one was the time that they were able to figure out and win that final fight. Again, with the strafe countering, but that is maybe not that impressive at first glance, but almost no teams are doing that either. So it's just really positive signs of life from No Tomorrow.
Yeah, amazing shot calling from Equinox. We've been seeing that all of this phase. But Zuna had some great calls too, knowing how to dictate the fights for the team, put No Tomorrow in danger in a lot of the fights, and even losing them out in the mid game. And then the invade of the Khazra camp too, understanding that they needed that fight to get back in the game since they had lost keeps. So we're looking at a comparison of the 2 shot callers of Zuna versus Equinox here. Equinox has been more of the melee role. They sort of play the same, but you see more of the flexing. Actually, really, we've seen Zuna play some ranged as well. So a lot of flexing between both of these shot callers. Do any of these numbers immediately stand out to you, Dread?
Kill participation of 94 or 94.5 there for Equinox. That is not only on the higher kind of echelon in general, but significantly higher there than Zuna. Just showing the impact that Equinox not only has as a shot caller, but the rotations, the roaming that he has is very impressive.
Yeah, and Zuna has been playing a lot of Dahaka, whereas if we see Dahaka for No Tomorrow, it seems like that's more of a Jason role, and so maybe it's more like what we've even seen from Tempo Storm, where Caterpillar has switched to a role where he can be with the rotation part of the composition, letting Fury be the split soaker in a way that Equinox. Basically, Cattle said it was a lot easier for him to make sure that he was shot calling from a part of the rotation instead of off to the side and soaking, and that's the trouble that we see potentially for Zuna that he has to overcome.
Yeah, it's a struggle, really it is, because it essentially, if you are not that person shot calling and making the initiation, you're putting a very heavy trust between those 2 members. This is not to say that that is something these people don't want, right? But to be able to build that takes time. And we know that in esports, especially with the HGC Part 2, like Phase 2, what we've experienced, you don't have time. Tempo Storm is, I think, a prime example of maybe you can't risk those type of things because every single week here matters.
It does. Team Dignitas is another. They're still not out of the woods, definitely, for the Western Clash, but well on their way to there. We've got our game number 2 map ready. No Tomorrow has picked Cursed Hollow, which means Naventic, after losing the last game, chose first pick.
Cursed Hollow here for No Tomorrow.
Cursed.
Cursed Hollow, yes, that is correct. Well, sorry, we had a conversation this morning after we got a nice tweet at us talking about the difference in wording and when it's accursed and when it's cursed.
When it's blessed.
And blessed.
And blessed.
And so thank you very much. I don't know the actual Twitter handle that tweeted that at us this morning. But now I know it's never going to be let down. Gilly will let me know every single time.
I said cursed too, so I was correcting us both.
Nailed it. All right, that's a snap task at our band for Naventic. We know Genji's on the table now. It wasn't successful, but it was intimidating. I mean, No Tomorrow lost team fights, and that's something that you wouldn't necessarily say you assume to happen in this type of a series. So now No Tomorrow goes, is the Genji worth the ban?
Potentially, if they are not willing to pick it in this first rotation, again, because they didn't. They wanted to get Ariel, they wanted to get Stitches.
Yes.
But that also was Infernal Shrines, and they had a game plan there.
I feel like part of the... Okay, so I do agree, but one thing to note for No Tomorrow is if they truly did feel like Naventic couldn't play the Genji, they 100% get the ban in the second ban phase, which is a huge win, or they get it after the second ban phase, another huge win. So by not picking it, I feel like was more of a wait, do they really not play this hero? You know, it was kind of a double check.
It was a test.
Yes, it very much was. So they are stepping away from that, even though Naventic, again, has shown to be able to play it. It is the Abathur removed. And to be honest, not surprised. Abathur has been such a key role on Cursed Hollow in North America, looking at all of Phase 2.
Just checking out what both people like to play, and No Tomorrow has played some Genji on Cursed Hollow, so there's a possibility there. Task Tracer is one thing that Naventic would love, but of course in banning out Tassadar, do they get their Dahaka here?
It's going to be the Uther. Still busting it out here for Naventic. High priority on that support. You know, Naventic traditionally had prioritized Tomster's Karazim above all else, and that was something where I was like, you know, do you really want to do that? But he really put up a good enough performance that I don't see why not. Naventic just showing, again, their draft priority and their philosophy on what is proper drafting right now is very different than the week before that, and conveniently even the week before that. But now No Tomorrow, Therese has got his Genji, and they take the Dahaka.
Wow, I think Team Naventic was thinking, oh, No Tomorrow doesn't play that much Dahaka. We can probably get it after Uther in the next rotation. But they are not so lucky. No Tomorrow not only got Genji, but they took Dahaka too.
And with the Abathur banned away, that's one of those moments where Naventic, it was a bit of a doozy of a rotation on what they wanted to prioritize, because again, the Genji question at hand, and the Abathur indicates maybe they do want that first pick, but Naventic hasn't been doing too hot with the Dahaka priority. Honestly, that last game was some of the best performance they've had in all of Phase 2. I'm glad we got the Uther. I feel like that is only, it showed positive signs in the last game. I'm going to assume it will do so here in the second one.
Yeah, Dahaka has been their most played hero out of all of Phase 2, and only two in their 9 games with him they've been able to win. So it makes sense that they would want to change that up. And it was a big change, obviously, to bring the support all the way up, because they picked Uther first, or in their first rotation before the second set of bans, a little bit, but only maybe 1 or 2 games. And it was always Karazim later on. And they're even going to get Lunara and Ariel, so they're going to run this double support.
Double support for Naventic with a huge battery out of the Lunara. The Lunara over, you know, the Vala, so automatically that kind of indicates, well, what are you trying to get the slow for? Are you trying to get it for anything? Or, you know, why didn't you go Vala is more the question No Tomorrow is considering. And so much so they even banned out the Illidan. Again, you know, Lunara pairs so much well with just slowing them down. Illidan dance all over the back line. So now what do we expect for a ban out of Naventic? No Tomorrow's already got, again, the Global and the Genji, so maybe something in the support department, maybe something into the front line, but...
Stitches.
Okay, it's going to be the Stitches.
Stitches and Anubarak is still up. Wow. So Stitches ban, No Tomorrow likely gets a noob here, especially since the Warriors are what's left for Naventic, or at least one Warrior for B-Kid. But B-Kid could, there's still lots of options for B-Kid, like maybe his Arthas will come back in.
Busting out the old Arthas. B-Kid has had such, I don't even want to attribute it to him. Again, it's whoever is leading the draft depending on the week. Oftentimes it feels like his hero pool has been like kind of pushed intentionally to be smaller and smaller, but it's always changing, if that makes sense. It seems like it's more of like there are very much 3 heroes that they're going to put him on that week, but it's a different set of 3 heroes every single week.
I'm wondering about this Dahaka. Equinox has yet to play Dahaka for the team. He's played more melee, so in that regard, maybe we'll get another melee assessment that makes this composition so melee heavy.
You can just get a hybrid. Just go ahead and get yourself the little, you know, the only guy who can be a little bit best of both worlds. Greymane is going to shift his way over. You know, I really am scared for Naventic in this game looking at the draft. Just on not so much synergy and map, just considering objective power. I mean, the entire lineup of No Tomorrow is sitting on the upper tier. Not to say that Naventic doesn't have those tools themselves, but I feel like it's going to kind of drop off here in their 4-5.
So they're just waiting on their support, what Tiger JK is going to play. But a lot of opportunities there. Potentially a Rhaegar. If he doesn't want to add another melee. Well, I was going to say Karazim, but Karazim is melee. Maybe Malfurion. They've paired Malfurion and Genji on Cursed Hollow before. But over here, Naventic. B-Kid has Arthas up, has not won an Arthas game yet, but has played quite a few Arthas games.
Yeah, I feel like I expect them to go to their guns, but again, Naventic has been so much in a different direction that I was hoping for something other than the Arthas there from them. But going a bit more to what they know best with the Arthas, but a Malthael.
That is a synergistic comp, my friend. I am stoked.
I am a little scared, Gilly. Every time we see Lunara and Malthael together, I have one question. Who is killing them?
Death.
Yeah, well, you know, as many times as like Malthael's lock-in line will intimidate me and his sweet voice with his whispering and everything, I just don't know if he has that same restrictions in the Nexus as he does in his own world. You know, he doesn't necessarily be the aspect of death. He just likes to hope he can instill
Well, I don't
death.
want to spoiler alert you as to what happened in Reaper of Souls,
I actually
but
don't know.
we'll just say, you know, things don't always go as he would like.
All right.
Even still, I don't know. I get it because
Yeah.
you need somebody to be able to ensure kills with Lunara, which is why Lunara and Illidan together is always the hot. But in this instance, maybe if there's a leaping strike along with that, or Malthael himself potentially.
Last rites, how dare you even say those words?
I just inferred. I didn't actually say it.
Yeah, that would make this a lot easier. Like, you know, obvious. I think it's very apparent we're gonna still get Tormented Souls. I don't think
Yes.
this is a miracle game where we get something different. It's just when everybody is weakening them and doing so much AOE damage, and you have two supports, and those are your only damage dealers. All three have a really good AOE dots. And that's where it ends. Nobody has the button. You know, that's why we know those heroes to be good with the resets. They are the enablers for those things. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is a challenge. And it's one that we've seen multiple times in the North American scene. And every time it seems to be like, if we could just kill something, but it's always just barely out of reach.
We'll see if Game 2 then is out of reach for Team Naventic, or if they're able to tie it up with No Tomorrow as we head into Cursed Hollow. Was that dramatic enough?
Yeah, I think the best part,
Cursed.
it wasn't even your own tone, you know? Like, you actually just tried to mimic the real in-game audio
Yeah.
for the guy. You didn't even go, it's the Cursed Hollow, and kind of put your own flavor or tone. You were just like, I'm going to be the Raven Lord.
I will be as scary as the... I don't...
That wasn't very
Probably
intimidating.
gonna have- no.
Yeah, you should probably go home.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
just call in sick. It's okay. Nobody had to experience that. All right, welcome to the solo cast. You know the teams. Game 2.
I didn't get to see who is playing what, and I want to know. Is Equinox on? Okay, Equinox is playing Greymane Dahakas. They're sticking with what we have seen from them before, but I'm most excited about this one right there. Genji, played by Talking Trees.
Yeah, the guy is an absolute animal on the Genji, the cybernetic ninja. The laning phase out of No Tomorrow you know, it's a little confused for now. Genji's trying to find his home, if it's going to be in top and bottom. Now the Naventic has shown a couple members. Trees, thank you. You know, it's just OCD at that point. I was like, that Wisp has to die. And look at, now we know.
33.
33 KDA. Now you know why Talking Trees is the guy to watch.
Yeah, it's something like 0.3 average deaths per game. He obviously does very well in the killing department, which is what you would like from a Genji, but also is very survivable. He makes sure that he gets out, gets the damage in, gets the kills in, gets the reset, and then gets out.
Talking about damage in, No Tomorrow's feeling a bit of that. Can they get the rebuttal pick back on to B-Kid? Reset is not going to be there for Trees, but Cyber Agility is. Look at that. Even Jason joining the members down here. But Naventic has found themselves the first 2 kills thanks to Malthael.
Yeah, Trees jumped right back out and saw the aspect of death, got hit by the Reaper's Mark, and that was the end of that. Naventic gets 2 kills to start things off, and Zuna showing one thing that is very frustrating when you play against Malthael, and that is his chase, as long as he keeps his Reaper's Mark on you. And speaking of our aspect of death, not going for the build that we saw Yoda talk about and play even last weekend, as well as on the website. Instead, getting Death's Reach here, so getting the Wraith Strike range increase of 35%. And we'll see if that means that he's going to move into the more standard of the old build, like Black Harvest here, even though that's Memento Mori at 16 was nerfed. It is still that. So once he finishes this Black Harvest quest, Maltheo will be able to keep Reaper's Mark on 2 additional seconds. And that only makes that chase even scarier.
Yeah, and we see out of trees, he's going to be transitioning towards the Shuriken build. This was, you know, a build that's fallen a little bit out of flavor, but it's about 25% of the time, I would say, Genji's end up going into it. It allows for a lot better later game damage overall. You have more consistent damage, and you're far less reset dependent. Interesting, you know, considering the double supporting on the other side, to see that adjustment here. Now looking for more of that, wow, initiation out of No Tomorrow, just blocking in iDream. No way out of that. Tomster, if any CC is going to land, what is it? Probably about 3 seconds before Cass has got an impale?
He's still following.
He's
There's
out.
no way he can get out of this. So 2 kills firing back for No Tomorrow. Talking Trees is here to try to delay Zuna, and Big Impact's going to show up as well. B-Kid flanking in from the side. Trees has to get out of there, and Naventic will be able to get the first tribute.
But at what cost, Gilly? It's a lot here gained for No Tomorrow. Yes, it is a silver lining that the tributes picked up, but with not only the kill happening, 2 kills happening on the other side of the map, the Giants are kept alive. The siege up onto the front wall is very quick on the side of No Tomorrow, and if this is indicative of the rotations we experienced in the last game out of No Tomorrow, I very much assume that they're going to be able to kind of lock down multiple forts pre-curse, which is essentially, I mean, again, a almost perfect picture that you could paint on how to play out the early game of Curse Hollow.
Man, they're even going to go for the boss here up in the top. I love that we saw Jason messing around a little bit with the members of Naventic. Some people may not remember, but last year Jason was briefly on Naventic, so he's playing versus some of his ex-teammates this match. Wants to show up a good time. Naventic doing the same, taking down a fort, so it'll be a fort for fort trade, but of course No Tomorrow and getting those couple of kills are also able to get the boss. The nice thing for Naventic is that it is a close tribute for them, but Genji makes it in time.
Yeah, Genji's able to get that delay. I thought this would be a forfeit of the objective, or No Tomorrow, but they've got the Giants and the boss up on top, and nobody on Big Impact, or on Naventic's side, is going to respond. Big Impact being the one who would be fastest to get the clear, but it looks like Zuna is going to start the channel. He will get it, but they lose a bit on the front wall here. Probably an entire front keep gate.
Those Giants doing work along with the boss. That will be scary for Naventic later on when No Tomorrow looks to get a curse, but at least Naventic has some time before that. No Tomorrow is taking advantage of the fact that Team Naventic finally had to go back and defend and get the boss. More of this amazing shot calling of No Tomorrow, showing how fast, how swift, how perfect their rotations can be to get ahead in the game, get themselves an experience advantage, get themselves an advantage when it comes to battleground control, when they start to look at more and more tributes so that they can get heroics.
Yeah, they've been just, it's really pretty, honestly, to watch them play the game right now. It's just, I don't even feel like they have to kill anybody on the side of Naventic. I'm just inspired by how they're moving as units and what they're, look, I mean, right now, look at every moment of this game where they've had a boss on the map. They are getting something else elsewhere, right? And right now, it's conveniently with the Knights up on mid, and now they're splitting the pressure with the 10 window closing in, realizing that as a 5-man group, they don't need to be there together. If they have the 10s, they can open up every part of the map, split the pressure to bottom, split the pressure to mid. Conveniently, attributes on the top half of the map, I'm sure they'll take that as well. They are just grabbing everything in a map this big, and how this early game is played out, Naventic can't get that small window like they did into the last game, at least not for what is going to be at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 minutes later from now.
Yeah, it's going to be a little while now, especially because No Tomorrow have gotten so ahead. They have their heroics. I love that Rhaegar is considering what heroic he wants to get. He has a lot of melee heroes, but importantly, Team Naventic has Touch of Death, and Touch of Death can wreck an Ancestral Healing. It's already going to be a problem for the self-heal of Dahaka. And No Tomorrow may decide that they want to go into Bloodlust and just try to kill them out.
You know, I suggested that in a cast that we had, I feel like last week or the week before it, and by no means did I think that would actually be something we saw come to life. Jason getting vengeance, or, you know, revenge over that annoyance that we experienced in the transition through the mid game, getting the pick onto Zuna. But we're talking about how Maltheo will go in, and he's still pretty vulnerable to kills as long as everybody's willing to get the kill onto him. The concern with that is Divine Shield on the other side, which is why I'm sure Tiger JK is yet to pick it up. If he sees a Divine Storm, he might consider it. But if, I don't know, actually, because then you could argue, well, what if we see the Tormented Soul's Divine Shield? well, what if you lust and just kill everybody else, because that's the only target that's getting all the heals, and everybody else is going to be vulnerable. Either way, Uther is the thing he's waiting for.
There goes the cursed bullet, and there goes Malthael as well. And he used Tormented Souls from that too. That is a 100-second cooldown. He will not get back for 100 seconds, in fact, because that is how cooldowns works. No Tomorrow get further and further ahead in this, showing off their Locust Swarm. They've got their Isolation too, so they are making the adaptations necessary to deal with Team Naventic's compositions. And still, they hold that heroic ability for Rhaegar. Divine Shield was picked up. We have the Crystal Aegis too, so it's full-on supporting for the members of Team Naventic. It's just whether or not at this point they can even make it back into the game.
It's got to be less. Like, we've seen the Uther, and he still hasn't taken it. Now all you're saying is we're just trying to be cheeky, I feel like. You know, you have no surprise value in picking the Ancestral.
They're pulling a Kona.
Yeah, they're pulling an Iacona here, even making it to the 13 talent tier. My goodness. Tiger JK, man. There it is.
There it is.
It's the Bloodlust.
And so we can have tidal waves, which makes sense. It's like, okay, this is a pretty good talent to be able to reduce the cooldown for my heal to deal with the poisons of Malthael Lunara. So I should probably just get my heroic ability, and it is Bloodlust. So a lot of different heroic abilities chosen for No Tomorrow. No Cocoon this time, so no Cocoon to deal with a Malthael if he gets in the backline with Tormented Souls, but it seems to be that that's just because they have full plans to blow him up.
Yeah, and again, it's weird. I feel like Malthael's going to move in. The Divine Shield hits him. The Lust is going to be dropped, and then it's all in the Lunara because she didn't take Leaping Strike. That's it. I feel like that's got to be it, because now if that's a Leaping Strike, suddenly you go, we might not be able to kill her, or at least she will be hard enough to kill that the time lost could be enough to hurt us in this fight. But again, you can reliably, with everybody moving faster than her, get onto a mobile-less hero. This is actually a really cool adaptation.
Bloodlust will also help a lot with the Arthas pick as well from Team Naventic to try to deal and make sure that if he flanks in, if Pika gets a good flank and they've got the slows from him as well as slows from Big Impact, Bloodlust can still make sure that the team, No Tomorrow, can get into the right position to be able to win the fight. What it doesn't mean, though, is that they have Ancestral Healing to pair with the Deflect of Genji. So Talking Trees, it's up to him to make the right changes to his play to make sure that he doesn't get into trouble in a situation where otherwise he would be able to get Ancestral Healing and then go right back in with the Dragon Blade. And even with Jason not getting adaptation, No Tomorrow has to play differently, but they understand this. They've got these heroic abilities now, and they're just gonna Bloodlust the core.
There's lust in the core, man. I love it. Everything they're doing. They're going to all in. They are going to possibly wipe, and even if they do, they say the call is going to be worth it. 57, 40, 30, nobody dead on the side of No Tomorrow, and that is GG in under 10 minutes. I want to say I've never seen that strategy before, but I feel like I have. I love it.
I mean, I'm laughing because we spent so much time hypothesizing about how full team fights are going to work, and the one that we see is as the core is dying. That was so cool.
Adore what we see out of No Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my favorite things to do in the world of shot calling is curse Hollow with a Bloodlust comp, because if you do gain the early lead the same way that we saw No Tomorrow, I did not think that No Tomorrow would be the team innovating on this, but their shot calling and rotations is so crisp. They're just baiting one objective somewhere at the map, and they go, well, the core's open, we can go. And again, if they wipe there, as long as there's no mule, the core ends at, what, 10%? What is Naventic going to do? They can't do anything. Two people at most would be all it takes to end the game. Love it. I can't say anything more than that. That is one of my favorite things to do in shot calling. If a team can force their opponent back to the core and respect what they've made happen for the first part of the game, that is world-class level. Like, I'm so happy to see that here.
Equinox and the members of No Tomorrow continuing to show how impressive their core calls can be, getting a second victory in the series over Naventic. Can Naventic bring it back? We'll find out after this.